One Question is designed to give subscribers valuable insights on how executive leaders in college athletics think about key issues on their respective campuses, in their departments, or within their leagues and conferences.
Greetings, this is Ty Brown, and welcome to One Question, where we highlight executive leaders in college athletics. Our guest today is Beth Goetz. Beth is the Director of Athletics at Ball State University. Greetings, Beth. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, appreciate you having me.
Now, Beth, you took over the chair there at Ball State in June of 2018, so we're a little over a year on the job. You've been in college athletics somewhere between 20 and 25 years, including your time as a soccer coach, as a player, moved over into administration. And so what I want to talk to you about is when you got there at Ball State, most of the people there had been there for a while, and the deputy AD was Coach Pat Quinn. He baseball coach for a while and worked in administration for a while. I think he was maybe the winningest baseball coach there at Ball State, and I think he was probably looking at retiring, right? And so you had to think about your plan for replacing him as the deputy athletics director. Tell me about that mindset when you came on last year and over the year as he got closer and closer to retirement.
Yeah, so I knew as soon as I arrived that was his plan, and Pat Quinn just a remarkable guy. He's touched so many lives and been so engaged in so many ways across the department. So the amount of historical knowledge we knew we were going to lose certainly was a lot of preparation in and of itself, just to prepare for that transition. But knowing that was going to happen a year out, it really allowed me, being new to the institution, to be really strategic about how to try and backfill that opportunity.
So before you decided on looking for a specific person for the deputy job, it seems like you had to define what the deputy position was going to be, because when you hired Fields there, his role is completely different than what Coach's role is. Talk about that process of deciding what the new deputy role was going to be as you planned for Coach Quinn's retirement.
Yeah, and you just hit the nail on the head. I mean, before I even got to a point where I was starting to think about the individual, that was the first part of the assessment is, really taking a look overall at the department and doing an assessment of where our gaps were in terms of providing that level of administrative support. And so I knew pretty early on, just obviously revenue generation and involvement on the external side is a priority for us, and this ever-changing landscape, to make sure we have the resources that we need to provide our student athletes a great experience. And so I had an idea pretty early on that was the direction that I was going to want to go, but had an opportunity to really ensure that was the need, and maybe define it even a little bit more about what type of individual I thought could bring the experience that was necessary, but also that was, able to be a great fit for our institution and what we needed, and the role of a team member.
How do you do that? I mean, like, did you talk to the president? This is where I'm thinking. What do you suggest? You think about people you've worked with and for over the years. Like, how did you define that, what you wanted in a person? Like, because there's what you want in the position, and then there's what you want in the person in the position. Like, what was your process on that over that year?
Sure. Absolutely had an opportunity to engage with the president, but I made that a collaborative process too with our leadership team, as we talked about what we needed to fill and what type of individual would fit in that role. So, we had looked at and had conversations in and around what a responsibility list might look like, what sports they might oversee, and that type of thing. And so, that really led us to to where we felt like we were ready to begin to look, and I knew it was such a critical hire for the institution, that in given some of the other changes on staff, we had a few other openings at the same time. I wanted to make sure we could do this really thoroughly and have a good reach. And so I actually brought on Ventura Partners and had a lot of help with Chad Chatlos, and that was a critical piece for allowing us to ultimately secure and find Haven Fields, who I just could be more thrilled about that we have him on our staff now.
Yeah, I wonder about that process, right? I mean, researching candidates. You had a few people in mind? I'm sure they probably brought a couple of people in mind, and looks like Haven's background. He's done a lot of the development and fundraising. Tell me about the research that you did on your own individually. Even with the staff or with you mentioned Ventura Partners and Chad Chadlos.
Yeah, I mean, I think going in, we all have connections in the industry, and so, for a year, really, knowing that external focus, wanting to have somebody that had fundraising experience, had hands-on fundraising experience at a high level, you're starting to talk to a lot of folks about who that might be and what that might look like, and so some of that happened, throughout the year and through conversations, and then, early conversations with Chad, you're sharing some names, and they're also sharing names and ideas back with you, and it gives you a chance to learn a little bit more about them, talk to people that know them, and then they do a lot of the heavy lifting, finding out who is of those folks. Once you've started to think about that, who is interested, who might be have interest in the position that you have open.
Now, when you bring in candidates, right, there may have been multiple people who fit the bill, or may have just been one person. The filtering process, right, you and your leadership staff, for somebody in a position that you've hired, like the deputy, and in their over development, like that's a very important position. Is that a very intense interviewing process that you helped design, or that process there? Tell me about how that worked.
Yeah, of course. A combination of both. So part of the piece that was really important to me is that we did, certainly had engagement on campus and some formal components to that and who those candidates met with. But I also wanted to make sure that it was somebody that felt like they could work with me and my team, and that I felt would be a good fit. So we tried to, there were parts of it that were formal, and we had some really great candidates, and parts, though, that we did in a little less formal setting, so we could have a chance to really make sure that we thought we would, be able to be a good fit with each other.
With the guard down, right? Not just necessarily in a formal environment.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
If you don't mind me asking, what did he do, Haven, in addition to his body of work during the interview process? Whether it was multiple times, one interview, what really impressed you that he was the person for a role such as Deputy Athletic Director?
The one thing that you got to feel for immediately was his ability to build a relationship. He's a very intentional in his engagement, and not just in the interview setting, but also in the follow-up before and after the conversations that we had. And that if it gave you a picture of how he would interact with coaches, with student athletes, and certainly with donors as well. So that piece, I think, was really telling immediately. There was just a comfort level that that I had, that he was going to be able to do that type of work and be a really good fit. We needed somebody that was going to be genuine and willing to dive in and understood what we needed, but was open and creative and wanted to really jump with us.
And that's important beyond interview. That's important for, I guess, across the board in the industry, right? If somebody's listening is thinking about going into an interview, if people feel like they can be comfortable with you and feel like you can carry yourself as a professional and develop relationships with the constituency that you will be engaging with, that's always a benefit in an interview.
Right. Absolutely.
And as a candidate. Yeah. So then we'll wrap here with this last couple questions here. You make your final decision. You decide to go with Haven, and tell me about that process of informing the president who you're going with, informing your team, or they informed you who they liked. Like, what was your process, the final decision process, from all sides, from Ventura Partners, from the senior leadership team, from the president at your university, and then letting Haven know that he was the person for the job?
So, we certainly collected feedback from everyone, and he, Haven spent time with our president and with our development staff, and on campus, which the foundation is managed outside of athletics for us. And so, we asked for feedback from all of those groups, and then it was, that's the time you're really evaluating. And like I said, we had a great pool, but certainly knew early on that he checked a lot of those boxes. And so in some ways it was a little, more of a confirmation of that in that final interview and evaluation. Once you're comfortable, and the next piece of that, obviously doing some background checks and having those conversations with former employees and employers and other people he's worked side by side with. Then the fun part, because you get to extend the invitation and get ready to move forward from there.
Yeah, that's important. So you go look the president in the eye, say, I think we found our person here. I'm gonna make this phone call, I guess. And then, I mean, like, is it just them to call you up? Hey, you're the person for us. I think we need you to move it forward. Like, I just, if you would, tell me about that part of the conversation as we wrap here on talking about hiring a deputy.
Yeah, I do think it's important all the time that certainly it's not just that they're interviewing for you. We're also selling Ball State and the vision that we have for the program. And so, that's an ongoing piece. So by the time you're actually extending the offer, hopefully you've done a good job of recruiting the candidate as well. And so, after you've checked your boxes and know that your president is going to be comfortable with the direction that you're going, then it's a conversation to explain to Haven that, hey, look, I want you to join the team and know what we can do together to help, continue to move the program forward, and outlining what that might look like and why we feel like he's the best fit and what he can bring to the table. And then, and then there's the moment where you're just hoping you're going to get the answer that you want on the other end. So, I think most of the time these things go well enough that you're hope that where it's going to land when you make that final offer.
Well, Beth, this has been a very informative conversation in terms of the whole process of identifying and hiring a candidate for the Deputy Athletics Director position. I really appreciate you joining us here on One Question.
Thanks for having me.
That was Beth Goetz. She is the Director of Athletics at Ball State University. And of course, this is Ty Brown with One Question. And keep in mind, the role of a leader is to create and maintain an environment that people want to be a part of. And as always, be better tomorrow than you are today. This episode of One Question is produced by Spades Media Group, solving problems using creative leadership.